To my daughter Cassidy, this is the story of your twin sister Felicity. I was overjoyed. It was finally the right time to start a family, and after a short time that felt forever of trying, we were finally pregnant. So it made all the waiting okay. And I knew your dad, he felt the same way, because when I told him, he teared up, and I gave him a bottle of champagne with the due date. Even though this was my first pregnancy, I felt really confident that my body could handle it and everything was going to go perfectly. Some of that confidence went away and was replaced by fear and excitement when at 12 weeks we had our first ultrasound and the technician told us that it was identical twins. We just laughed at you guys on the screen. We felt so special to be having twins, and we immediately called all our friends and family. So finding out we were having twins, it added to our worry level. But I started Googling everything I could find on what we should do should X happen. Surprisingly, my pregnancy progressed mostly without incident. My pregnancy progressed mostly without issues, except for the pretty constant morning sickness. Each time we would go to see the doctor, they would tell us that all the things that they worry about with twins, I wasn't showing any signs of, and that my babies were actually very close in weight, which was a good sign. As the pregnancy progressed, we started to worry less about the pregnancy itself and more about the upcoming birth. Since we were excited to be a part of the twin community, I attended a MBFA prenatal class, and I shared that, ironically, my biggest fear was that my babies would be too big. We had, at this point, at 18 weeks, we found out that we were having girls, so we decided on the names Cassidy and Felicity, but the plan was not to officially decide on the names until you were born. I, however, started to think of baby A, Cassidy, on my right, because you were a little firecracker and kicking my ribs and moving all over the place, and baby B, Felicity, on my left, because she was more easygoing and she actually posed for her ultrasound photos. So I didn't know it at the time, but June 14th, 2016, when we were 35 weeks and 3 days gestation, was actually a turning point. And I went into the hospital with hives all over my belly. They were driving me crazy with itching. So the doctors, they hooked us up to monitors, and your heartbeats were perfectly fine for hours. And with what the doctors suspected that I had, there was no cause for concern for the babies anyways, so they sent us home. I was okay with them sending us home because I wanted to give my babies the most time in utero as possible. We had a scheduled ultrasound at 12:30 p.m. I had a bad night, didn't sleep much, was going crazy with itching, and I just went through my normal, slow morning routine, and at some point realized that I hadn't felt much kicking. But I rationalized that today would probably be the day you were born. Even though I was worried, I was convinced that I was overreacting and this would all turn out to be a false alarm. Giving into the fear a little bit, I asked the technician to start with baby B because I hadn't felt her kick very much. Right away, I could tell that she wasn't moving. And the technician confirmed right after, saying, "I'm sorry, I can't find a heartbeat. Your dad," he vaguely remember him saying, "No." And echoing my thoughts as we started to break down. As we were crying, the technician had me turn over to my left side so that she could scan for you. And as we were crying, our twin doctor, she came in. She said, she was crying, she said, "I'm so sorry. We have to get the baby out." And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was because that your heart rate was sluggish, and I didn't even know that I could lose you too. There were some scares and drama with the C-section, but 45 minutes after that ultrasound, you were born screaming, a very loud, alive, healthy sound. It was the best sound that we could hear, and it was such a relief. A minute later, your sister was born silent. And the truth of the ultrasound hit home. Still on the operating table, your sister was handed to me. And I loved her even more than before. Your dad asked her name, and I said Felicity, thinking that the name luck and happiness, the meaning of the name luck and happiness should follow her wherever she goes. And then they handed you to me, and I felt the same love for you, except this time it was accompanied by joy instead of grief and sorrow. For 3 surreal days, we got to be together as a family. Going from the shock of the ultrasound to the rushed surgery to a mother of this tiny living baby and a tiny little angel baby, it was impossible to comprehend, even though I was living it. As the drugs and the shock started to wear off slightly, I started to have to deal with all these stresses that I hadn't expected to deal with as I was recovering from the surgery and the pregnancy. Instead of worrying about how we were going to tell our twins apart, we had to deal with a stack of paperwork, to decide if we wanted to do an autopsy, figure out if we still wanted to do pictures, to make a birth,
and a death announcement, and at the same time grieve. We had to somehow say goodbye to Felicity just as we were saying hello to you. That time was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. We still laughed because you made these crazy silly faces right from the get-go and had all these silly antics. And we also cried, holding Felicity and touching her baby soft skin. And we told both of you how much we loved you. Leaving the hospital was devastation all over again. To leave my baby, my arms were aching with emptiness. On the drive home, the car was completely silent. You weren't making a sound. And all I could hear ringing in my ears was the crying of an infant. And my body physically ached to hold her. Without her, I still deal with a lot of questions that still haunt me. How will you be okay without your twin? Will I be too damaged as a mother? And how can I survive with grief and all of the complicated emotions that go with it? I hope that telling you this story helps for you to feel close to your sister and feel the connection that you had for the first 8 months of your life. That's why we chose to record this video here. And this is where Felicity's star is placed with many other angel babies at Roger Nielsen's house in Ottawa. I feel like I need to tell an ending to this story, but all there is that I hope that I want us to still have Felicity in our lives, together as a family, even though she's gone.